Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshushanmilitam Yera Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadadi Sapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sivisakhanvitanscha Namom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Grandharaja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So today we carry on this discussion with the unit 9 of study of Bhakti Vaibhava Vidayamayachi. And we were discussing the process of creation based on the verses 25 onwards to 37. And the last point we discussed was the qualities of all the physical elements are due only to the final touch of the Lord's glance. So he becomes the effective creator of all the elements. Why he becomes the effective creator, the efficient creator of all the elements? Because nothing will happen without his glance. So in the diagram that we had shown you, there is that kind of star, and that represents the Lord's glance, time, and Mahat Tattva, which is the portion of the material energy. Right? So the portion of Mahat Tattva, Lord glance plus time, and a portion of Mahat Tattva external energy. That is what make everything combine together. Without the effect of time, it doesn't work. And that's what we had discussed last time. So then it was left for us to explain a little bit more the relationship between Adideva, Adhyatma, and Adibhuta. And why are there the importance of the sense devatas? And why is it created? So that will take us to the text 38. The controlling deities of all elements, portions of Vishnu, were unable to perform their universal duties as they were not related with each other. With folded hands, they began praising the Lord. The controlling deities of all elements, they are the sense devatas, right? And they were unable to perform the duty. So I will go back to one small diagram, and then I will explain how this works. Then we understand text 38. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today, and then we will hopefully finish this section up to page 51. So anyone wants to recap, make some reflections, ask some questions? I hope that you have read. Without reading these parts of the purport, the notes, the diagram, it will become practically very difficult. It will become very difficult for us to absorb this section of the Bhagavatam. So let us pray and hope that the devotees have studied this here. So any reflections, any comments on what we discussed before?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Madhavan Prabhu.
You told us that we should read the process, verses 23 to 37, which is the process of creation. And it was stated that the creation started with the interaction of the first ego with the three modes of material nature and the external energy, Maya, or illusion. I don't know, Prabhu, if we can just discuss briefly the process so that we can continue, because you have mentioned text 38 now, which was after those process.
Which verse were you referring to when you said?
The process of creation.
Yes, but which verse in particular?
I think that should be verse either 23, 20.
Yes, but we covered 23. That. Were you here 23. Last week? 23 to 37. We've covered that.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't around. That's why.
You weren't here?
I don't think so. No, Prabhu.
Oh. So the thing is, you can listen to the recording. Okay. And if that would have helped you to actually absorb much of what we had described, because that's a long 2 hour 20-minute discussion with the diagram that I sent.
Okay,
so
Prabhu.
23 to 37 was the process of creation. The Lord as the seer through the agency of Maya, how he creates both cause and effect. And then the Lord of Mahavaikuntha, whose plenary expansion, Karuna Lakshaya Vishnu, he glances over the material nature. Then he impregnates time, Kala, and the Jivas with the Swabhava and the Karma. And then with the effect of time, the modes of material nature starts to get agitated. When the modes of material nature start to get agitated, the pradhana, the primal material energy in its avyakta, unmanifest form becomes vyakta, becomes manifested, becomes moving, becomes in movement, in gestation. And then it's called Mahatattva. Then the Mahatattva, with the Mahatattva generally is in Sattva Gun. Then from Mahatattva, predominantly in Tamas, mixture of Ahankara in Tamas, a mixture of Mahatattva in Tamas generates Ahankara. Then with Ahankara in goodness, right? Then Ahankara mixes in passion, Ahankara mixes with ignorance. When Ahankara mixes in goodness, it gives generation of Jnana Shakti, which then evolve into mind and senses, sense devatas. Then the Mahatattva, portion that has now converted to Ahankara. Then Ahankara mixed with passion generates the doership energy, the Kriya Shakti. And then the pranas, the movements are caused by the different airs in the body, which is prana. And then the generation of prana takes place because passion, action, and senses, action, then intelligence. And intelligence also is what causes action. Then that is generated. Then Ahankara mixed with ignorance, right? Ahankara in ignorance generates the matter, the material element is starting with, first of all, the matras, the sense objects. So to be able to, ether has a quality of sound in it, but the quality is generated. The sound is generated. And then the ether comes from there. And then the quality of touch is generated. And then the air, it generates from there. Then the quality of form is generated. Then the quality of fire comes from there. So the quality, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, they are the object of our senses. We want to touch, we want to hear sound, we want to C4, those are called sense objects. They are tanmatras. So these tanmatras, and then the Panch Mahabhuta, the 5 gross elements generated from the tanmatra. So that then the 5 gross elements, the ether, air, fire, water, earth are generated. But now, in order to coordinate the actions between these three, the combined effect of the mind, the sense devatas, right, is actually falls in the category of Adideva. Then the pranas, the life airs, the senses, and the intelligence falls within the category of Adhyatma, because these are what goes the self, the individual, right? And then you have the controllers. Then you have the what do you call the prana, sensors, and intelligence, which actually the mechanism by which we start to do things. Right? We become doers because of senses, so to speak. We become action makers, or we get involved in action, doing things, thinking things, feeling things, etc. It's all based on adhyatma. I want to do. So I'm given the pranas, like I'm moving my hand. The only reason the hand is moving is not because of the muscle, it's because of the prana. The air contracts. And because of the motion of the air, the muscles contract. So it's pneumatic. So when there's an imbalance in the air, in the vata, you will become paralyzed. Not because of the muscles are still all intact. But the air is disbalanced, the vata, which is pranas. So those cause a motion, and therefore they are generated from the mode of passion, ahankara and passion. Then you have the tanmatras and the elements, the sense objects and the elements, which we want to control, have action upon, dominate, have dominion upon. So then there are those who allow us, those who want to, and those who are to be manipulated. So to speak, it's Adideva, those who allow us, Adhyatma, we want to, and Adibhuta. It's very difficult to get the right adjectives for these, and because it's Sanskrit. And Adibhuta are the elements we want to enjoy. So I want to enjoy this juice, but I lifted this glass. But because someone allowed me to lift the glass, and those are the sense devatas. So these three, which we discuss now in text 38, we will come to that. Is it clear so far? A resume? It's extremely hot here.
Krishna's energy, and it's cold, very cold here.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me where's Rasavan? Why is he always late?
Yeah, I learned he should be joining us soon. He's always coming late anyway. But I'm sure he will join us soon.
Allow me to share.
Yeah, you can go ahead now.
Okay, I'm just drawing this. Now, these free agencies, or these free, these three divisions of, the energizing, or these three things, what we call here Adideva, Adibhuta, and Adhyatma. Adideva, they are the mind and the 10 senses and the devatas here, right? So here, okay. All right. I hope you can see this. Now, let us put this in perspective. So when the world is now, these are the three things that come into action. Okay, this is the Jnana Shakti. This one is a Jnana Shakti. Okay, here Jnana Shakti, generated from the Jnana Shakti. And this is the effects. You have it there. So I'm just making some, now let us see. Okay. Okay, so this is represent the cause. This represents us, so to speak, or all the living beings who are thrown into the material creation. Right. Now, these three things are interdependent. There is what you call an absolute interdependence. Why is there an interdependence? I will explain this. That one cannot work without the other. If you have these two, if you have Adhyatma here and Adideva, but we don't have the sense elements and the sense objects, then what is Adhyatma is going to try to work with? And what is the Devatas going to allow or not allow? So it's all working together. Now, if we don't have the Adhyatma and only the Adideva is there, the Devatas, sense Devatas, what will they try to control? What will they try to allow to happen if this isn't there? So these elements are there. No one there to interact with the sense objects and the elements. Right? Adhyatma is not there to interact with the sense objects and the elements. So what will they allow, not allow? And if these items are there, okay, and the Adhyatma is there, then this is the intermediary to allow us to allow the Adhyatma to actually manipulate or come in contact or enjoy anything, these things. So it's all important. So let's put it this way. If here a person is trying to use his senses, for example, his arm, to lift something, okay? And say wants to lift an object. So he may just go and lift the object, but it doesn't quite work like that, because these senses have sense devatas who allow them to function, to make them functional. So then if someone here has a desire in the intelligence to actually lift something here, then this message is sent to the sense devatas. Such and such person A wants to leave, want to get hold of object B. So this information is relayed there, and then these persons, both, they will try to allow this object to be in possession or in position, and they will allow the personality here, the person here, the adhyatma here, who wants to enjoy it, or you want to lift it, or you want to touch it. So it works together. This is a cosmic understanding, but it works on all levels, on microscopic level or in macroscopic level. So this triangular thing is the interdependence of Adhyatma, Adideva, Adibhuta. You will read it also in the first verse of the 8th chapter of the Gita. But here there's some extra explanation is done. So if you read the verse 38, it says, Ete devaha kalaha Vishnu, kala mayangsa linginaha, nanatvatsva kriyanishaha, prochu pranjalayo vimum. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcel. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. So yes, these elements were there, these senses, this was there. Okay, the sense objects were there, the intelligence and the 10 senses were there, but they couldn't function properly. Why? Because here it's explained in this text, the controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Vishnu, right? They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. So they are entrusted with different functions of universal duties, but were unable to perform them. They offered, so they were there, but they couldn't perform. Why? We'll understand the very essence of this explanation. So I will stop share and we will carry on this discussion. Why couldn't they perform interdependently? Now, if anyone could read the purport. And we have to go a little bit fast. I'm not going to make a long class.
Purport to test, to which test?
38. 38.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to me because I don't know how I didn't follow. I was on 28 in my bookmark. Okay, the purport of 38 says that the conception of various controlling demigods who inhabit the higher planetary systems for the management of universal affairs is not imaginary. As proposed by persons with a pure fund of knowledge, the demigods are expanded parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and they are embodied by time, external energy, and partial consciousness of the Supreme. Human beings, animals, birds, etc., are also parts and parcel of the Lord and have different material bodies, but they are not the controlling deities of material affairs.
So they are the section of the Adhyatma. So the universal controlling deity is a section of the Adideva. Carry on.
They are rather controlled by the such demigods. Such is not superfluous. It is as necessary as the controlling departments in the affairs of a modern state. The demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. They are all great devotees of the Lord, entrusted to execute certain functions of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraj for his thankless task of punishing sinful souls, but Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods, who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respect on account of the responsible position to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish persons accept the demigod as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they are all appointed as servants of Vishnu.
Okay, so the rest of the purport explains that actually what is permitted and allowed by the different devatas is actually what are the results of universal affairs. Prabhupada gives here in the example of, say, two trees situated on the banks of the river Ganges. One is a nice fruit and the other one is neem. So the one tree, it has also roots that taking water from the Ganges, and the other tree also has roots taking water from the Ganges. And also the one tree is taking sunlight from the same sun, and the other tree is also taking sunlight from the same sun. But the one tree is producing nice sweet fruit, and the other one is producing bitter neem leaves. Why is that? Because they are controlled differently based on their past karma by Adideva. So very similar, two trees in the same situation, but they produce different effects. So that is the idea of effects. You saw that dravya effects in the triangle. The dravya, the effects are different. They produce different things. So there may be one living entity, one jiva in the tree of the fruit tree, and the one jiva in the tree of the neem tree. The effects they are producing is different. Why? Because Adideva knows that this one is meant to produce this one is meant to produce this. So you see they work in triangular fashion. Otherwise, if you didn't have that kind of control, then one day you'll be going to the neem tree and you'll be getting mangoes, and you'll be going to the fruit trees and you're getting neem leaves. You follow? Or one day you will see cows starting to behave like tigers, and tigers start to behave like cows. So that is, they are meant to act in a certain way. They're given a nature, and the nature and the senses and the desires are controlled so that the effects are produced accordingly. This is a science of this understanding of this triangular Adideva, Adibhuta, Adiyagya. So text 39. The demigod said, "Oh Lord." Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
I'm looking at this explanation and in relations to the scientist and the universal plan of the Lord.
Yeah.
Because the scientist, based on these explanations of the Lord's control of activities through the demigods, I'm looking at the recent developments in the AI technology that the scientists are developing, and they are getting so advanced to the extent that the scientists are able to do an AI intelligence that could practically instinctively, how do I explain this?
They won't have choice and inspiration. They'll be programmed, but in terms of they'll be programmed in yes and no, but can they appreciate the colors of a beautiful painting? So inspiration, which comes from the Lord, discriminative power, in the finest, in the minutest, will not be possible by any kind of AI. It will be a repetition of programmed intelligence. Artificial intelligence is programmed according to a set of yes and no's, 1 and 0. It's just a sequence of 1 and 0. And sometimes a sequence of 1 and 0 can produce likes and dislikes. So the electricity goes this way, goes that way, goes this way, goes that way, and then by the combination of certain sets of binary numbers, they produce an effect. That's AI. It is just a more involved computer. But can they have feelings? They may simulate feelings, but they cannot have feelings. So those things are a function of the chitta, a function of the soul, through the consciousness. So I hope I answered the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so 39. The demigods, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered soul, protecting them from all miseries of material existence. So here the demigods are trying to pray to the Lord because they are unable to make the functions work. So they are there as universal administrators, but they don't seem to be able to function. So everything is suspended. We will hear again more of this. So all the sages under that shelter of all material miseries, we therefore offer our obeisances. So these are prayers of the demigods to the Lord. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. So let's read text 40. O Father, O Lord, O personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have happiness because they are overwhelmed by the free kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also shall thus take shelter of them. So here the devatas, they're praying to the Lord that the living entities in the mundane world, in the material world, they can never have happiness because of the three kinds of material miseries. The three kinds of material miseries here referring to adhyatmika, again the adhyatma of the thing, which means from my intelligence, my mind, my body, I will suffer. Then adi, so let's read in the purport Prabhupada explained that adi bhautika, that is pains caused by other living entities. These are the three kinds of miseries, the two kinds. And the third kind of misery is adi devika, which means material nature under the effective management of the devatas. They react and give us pains and troubles according to our karma. So adi devika. So here, this happiness is nothing but a hard struggle. So what is the happiness of the living entities? Is nothing but a hard struggle to get away from these three kinds of miseries. So these three things that we've shown you, right? They work like that, but in effects from here, you get the what you got? You get klesha, you get misery, you get klesha, which is by your own body and senses. Okay. Here, you get the klesha by your own body and senses. Here, material nature in terms of other living beings, adibhutas, other people's senses, other people's thinking, other people's behavior, they cause problem to the jiva, or the demigods cause problem. So these are there to facilitate the actions, but they also have reactions here. So adhyatmika pain is by our own mind and senses, then adidevika pains from the devatas, and adibhautika pain from other living beings. So this is what's explained. So let's read text 41. This one is very beautiful. Marganti jatte mukhapadma nidhe chanda suparne rishayo vivikte yasyagamarsho dasharitvaraya padam padam tirtha padam prapannam. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages carried by the wings of the Vedas, chanda suparne rishaya vivikte, by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. So they want to nest their mind on the beautiful lotus-like face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And some of them, he says, Yasyaga Marshod the Saridvaraya. He says, some of them surrender to your lotus feet, padam padam tirtha padam prapannam. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step, padam padam, by taking shelter of the best of rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. So they're praying that the sages, they take shelter of the Ganges. You know, they go and stay in places where the Ganges is flowing, and they completely try to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they want to actually have their mind completely engaged by thinking from the knowledge of the Vedas about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this prayer is actually one of the verses I think you may have to remember by heart. Okay? So please, you can read this. I'm not sure. So the Vedas are meant to attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedaischa sarver aham eva vidya Vedanta krit veda vidivachaham. Okay. So in the last part of this purport, the Lord is so kind that he has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe, so that by taking bath in the holy river, everyone can get released from the reactions of sin, which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world which are able to evoke one sense of God consciousness simply by bathing in them. And the river Ganges is the chief amongst them. So you can read that. It's just simple narrative. So in text 42, simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them with the heart, within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. So the devatas in charge of the universal affairs, unable to actually perform properly, they're praying to the Supreme Lord, and they are saying that we are eagerly waiting for devotion, meditating on your lotus feet. So text 43. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. So here is a glorification of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord within these last 3 verses we've read, including the verse here, 43, 42, and 41. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport is saying that he talks about the 3 deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, and they are the controllers or masters of the 3 modes of material nature. Vishnu controls the modes of Sattva, Brahmaji controls the mode of Rajas, and Lord Shiva the modes of Tamas. And there are different kinds of devotees according to the modes of nature. This we understand from the Bhagavad Gita also. Persons in the mode of goodness, they worship Lord Vishnu. Those in the mode of passion worship Lord Brahma. And those in the mode of ignorance, they worship Lord Shiva. right? So these are the three deities or incarnations of the Supreme Lord. They are guna incarnations of the Supreme Lord. So, in the last part, Prabhupada makes a point. Persons who worship Lord Vishnu are called demigods, and persons who do not do so are called asuras or demons. But there are some asuras and demons who worship Brahma or Shiva. You would go a long way if you read the verses and the purports before come to class. I hope you do. So text 45, 44. O persons, O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. So how is the lotus feet of the Lord situated within their own bodies? As Paramatma. The Lord as Paramatma is situated, and we can see the lotus feet of the Lord if we close our eyes and look. And the lotus feet of the Lord is situated within our own bodies as Paramatma. But because we are so much concerned with Aham Mameti, I and mine, we actually do not see this. So text 45. O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendently enjoy your activities. So, so those who are too much attached to material life, and this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada quotes a verse 1861. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridesha arjuna tishtati brahmayam sarva bhutani yantra rudrani mayaya. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart and is directing the wanderings of all living entities. Right? And the living entities are seated on a machine, which is a machine of the body made of material energy. So in the first part of the purport, Prabhupada talks about consciousness. Is spread all over the body. And one should realize this. Realization of consciousness is also taught in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Both in terms of Dhyana Yoga and in terms of Sankhya Yoga in chapter 2. So text 46. O Lord, persons who because of their serious attitude attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Lok in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. So Krishna Katha, this is what it is all about here. A person saying, because of their serious attitude, those who want to attain the stage of enlightenment by devotional service, right? They attain it by simply hearing Krishna Katha. They attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual skies simply by drinking Krishna Katha through the ear. So far, it's very straightforward. Anyone wants to ask any questions? Because this section here, 39 to 51, is prayers by the demigods to Karanodakshai Vishnu. Okay. First, in the text 39, he says, the lotus feet of the Lord is umbrella that protects us from all miseries. Then in text 40, he says about the full of knowledge, right? The lotus feet awards knowledge, then vanquishes sinful reactions in text 41. And in 42, how it reveals knowledge and detachment. And in 43, awards remembrance and courage, right? And so on. So we've discussed that. So the qualified and unqualified candidates for the shelter of your lotus feet is these 4 verses, 44, 45, 46, and 47. So the Gyanis, the impersonalists, they actually cannot take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they do not take shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this text 47 that was described, the Gyanis and the Bhaktas. Now in the text 48, prayers for enlightenment and direction. So as from 48, 49, 50, and 51, the Devatas, they start to ask prayers for enlightenment about how we're going to actually do our service. So let's read 48. So therefore, we are therefore but yours only, O original person. So the Devata is saying, we belong to you only. We're here. We belong to you. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the free modes of nature. And for this reason, we are separated in action. So they identify that we are actually your answers. We belong to you. We are meant for your service. But because of the modes of nature, we all have different separate bodies and separate functions. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure. So now they're saying that we are unable to act for the reason that you put us here for your pleasure, right? So the Devatas are all meant to serve the Supreme Lord. O unborn one, please enlighten us. I'm reading text 49. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable grains and commodities, so that both we and all other living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance and can easily accumulate the necessities of life, both for you and ourselves. So basically, the Devatas are meant to supply us as intermediate suppliers of all facilities for living entities to live properly. Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanya dhanashambhava. Bhagavad Gita in chapter 3, Krishna explains in Karma Yoga that by proper performance of ritualistic activities unto the Devatas, there's cooperation between man and Devatas, and everyone can live in prosperity and properly. So basically they're saying this, but here they are saying, what yajna can we do? So Krishna is teaching right from the onset that unless there is yajna that is performed, the functionality of the living entities and the Devatas, the function of the Devatas will not take place properly. I'm sorry, I'm rushing through, but these are prayers you can read through. There's a very beautiful, sweet narratives. It doesn't require much explanation to understand, but you have to read it cautiously and carefully. Okay. So in text 50, it says, you are the original personal founder of all the demigods. So we know the Lord is a founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations. Yet you are the oldest and unchanged. So this is still prayers of the demigods. Okay? Still prayers of the demigods. There is, I don't know whether in that, there's a diagram that you have received in the overview. No? Because all these prayers between 59 and 39 and 51 is graded properly. So you can read these. Do you have this? Let me see. I've sent you this, so you have this. So, okay, it's here. Okay, so here you can just go through this as a summary. Awards, remembrance, and courage, unqualified people, qualified people, prayers by the demigods to Mahavishnu, okay, drinking Krishna Katha, then pains of Gyanis and pleasure of Bhaktas, then carry on here, 39, okay, you have this. So this should be used as a guide so that you're not completely without direction when you're reading. Okay, so here you're not without direction. So let's see. So you have this, so I don't think this should be a, so let me stick to text 50 and finish with 51. So you are the original personal founder of all the devatas and the orders of different gradations. So basically he's saying what we've discussed so far, the Adideva, Adhyatma, the sense devatas, the sense objects, the living entities, all there, all the ingredients there. But the devatas are unable to function. So they're praying to the Supreme Lord. Okay. Why? Because unless the Lord enters into the cosmic creation as a soul of the creation, nothing functions. So even though he's injected his energy through his glands and the Mahatattva and the time, everything is not mixing properly. It's not working properly without the Lord entering into the, that's why they're praying, and through their prayers, then the Lord will say, okay, we'll sort this out. So now he's saying, oh Lord, you have no source or superior. You impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. Do you understand this? Anyone? Come on.
Yeah, we're trying to digest.
Okay,
Yeah.
Rasavan, try.
Okay. Here it clearly shows that every living entity comes into existence by the intermediary of a father. But the Lord, he has no father.
Okay, yeah, I get that. And then? The last part? You are impregnated the extent. So the sum total of the jivas, that is by the glance of the Lord, goes into material nature. The sum total of the jivas by the glance of the Lord goes into material nature. Just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you are muted.
Sum total, Prabhu is here, the sum total of the living entities which the Lord is impregnated into the material nature. They are the energizing force of material creation. Material creation is meant for them. So they become like the semen. That's what it is saying. So you have no source of superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities. Doesn't mean the living entities at this point, they have no body. They're just souls. And the souls act like the activator. Because according to their karma, swabhav, and desire, the material world will be segregated into bodies and given bodies to them. And also a place where they can try to enjoy. And also a place where they can try to enact their desires. Do you follow this now, please?
Yes.
Okay. So he's the original father of everyone. So let me read text 51. I'm not able to speak very much. O Supreme Self, please give us who are created in the beginning from the Mahat Tattva. So who is created from the very beginning? The Devatas, the sense Devatas here. So he says, O Supreme Self, please give us who are created in the beginning from the Mahat Tattva, the total cosmic energy. Right? Does it make sense from that picture? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The matter is the total cosmic
Yes,
energy.
let me get the picture. Here, from the Mahat Tattva, right? We've shared this before with you. From the Mahat Tattva, okay? Here, this is the sense Devatas here, control of senses. See, they are the one who is speaking here. Yeah. And the sense Devatas. So they are saying that we've been generated from Mahat Tattva. They've come here. And he said, this is what they're speaking. O Supreme Self, right? Please give us who are created in the beginning from the Mahat Tattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. So they here, this is there. Control of senses, mind and sense devatas are there. The pranas, the 10 senses, intelligence are there, and within the adhyatma, and the elements and the sense objects are there, but they cannot actually work with them to manage the universal affairs. Is it clear now?
Yeah.
So they're asking your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render your service in the different departments of subsequent creation. So the creation will evolve from here, but with the help of these personalities. But they are in confusion at this point, so they're praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So to complete this section, okay, it actually, Prabhupada actually makes a very nice summary of everything we've understood so far. So can I ask one of you to please read the purport? Nicely read the purport, and I will make some comments. I'm actually in pain, so it's not.
Okay, I do.
Yes, please read so we can hear.
The Lord creates this material world and impregnates the material energy with the living entities who will act in the material world. All these actions have a divine plan behind them. The plan is to give the conditioned souls who so desire a chance to enjoy sense gratification. But there is another plan behind the creation to help the living entities realize that they are created for the transcendental sense gratification of the Lord and not for their individual sense gratification.
Let me make a small comment on this. So, the senses of the jivas has dual purpose. They can use it to act in this material world according to what they want to do. They have this desire, they're given the facility, they deserve it in a kind of way because of their karma. That's the direction they're going. So the Lord has given them the possibility of the dravya, the elements, of the tanmatras, the sense objects for enjoying, good taste, good things to see, good sound to hear, good perfume to smell, so to speak. So it's either this, so they can just be conditioned badhas, jivas, and use the facilities of this material creation for their own enjoyment. The other thing is the senses also has the ability to take on bhakti. Bhakti, devotional service can also manifest even on the contaminated senses. So we want to eat, but we can use our hands to cook for the Lord. Our primary service in the beginning is to cook for us. We want to eat. But then our spiritual master tells us, before you eat, please cook for the Lord, offer to the Lord. But you're hungry, you want to eat. So you offer and then you eat. So that becomes devotional service. So this is what it is saying here. So we can either have a desire to enjoy sense gratification, which is what the world, cosmic creation is meant for. But at the same time, dual purpose. It's also meant to save us from this material life, so that no more coming back into this material creation. Yes, Salika Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm trying to understand it by using the metaphor or analogy of a father driving a car, and then the child also wants to drive. So the father gives him a toy car to drive. But the father is giving him the toy car to drive, not because the ultimate purpose of the father is for the child to drive, but he actually wants to drive. But to allow him to drive, he gives the child a kind of a toy to drive, but ultimately, actually, he is the one actually wanting to drive. So to simultaneously satisfy the child in experiencing the imaginary or illusory driving, he also is fulfilling his desire by driving without distractions. Can we use this as an analogy to explain this?
Yes, generally these analogies are not always perfect, but gives an idea.
Gives an idea.
Yeah. Gives an idea. Because analogies are generally born out of logic. So logic's not always 100% right, but some of the logics mentioned in the Vedas, they are perfect logics. Some of our logic, some very intelligent Pandit, they will pick some fault in your logic. But the Vedic logics are quite different. So we have to understand Shastra by logic. Very important. By logic. Samya. If you don't have logical explanation of things, also it's not good. So yes, it's a good example.
Thank you.
Good example. 'Good example. So can we carry on reading?
Okay. This is the constitutional procedure of the living entities. The Lord is one without a second, and he expands himself into many for his transcendental pleasure. All the expansions, the Vishnu Tattwas, the Jiva Tattwas, and the Shakti Tattwas, the personality of Godhead, the living entities, and the different potential energies are different offshoots from the same one Supreme Lord. The Jiva Tattwas are separated expansions of the Vishnu Tattwas. And although there are potential differences between them, they are all meant for the transcendental sense demonstration of the
You
Supreme
jumped
Lord.
something.
It's okay. No, he hasn't jumped.
Some of the Jivas, however, wanted to lord it over material nature in imitation of the lordship of the personality of Godhead. Regarding when and why such propensities overcame the pure living entities, it can only be explained that the Jiva Tattva have infinitesimal independence, and that due to misuse of this independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation and are therefore called Nitya Baddhas, or eternally conditioned souls.
Okay, so here, the eternally conditioned souls because they made the wrong choice. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that fish in the river can go to the right bank or the left bank. It just happens that the right banks are spiritual and the left banks are material. So this is the condition of the jivas. So they go to the conditioned state by taking birth, appearing in the cosmic creation because of desires to be separate from Krishna. So the Jiva Tattvas, the separated expansions of the Lord, they're called Bhinna Prakriti. They are material, they are energy of the Lord, but they are spiritual energy superior to Prakriti. They are superior to Prakriti, they're superior to material nature. The Jivas are superior to material nature, but they're weaker. So therefore they get dominated. Covered. Prakriti has two functions. Irakshipa and Avaratmika. Pulling down and covering. So then jivas are pulled down in the covered. That is a condition here. Carry on reading.
Prabhu, yes, I have a question here. I want you to clarify for us. And it's about the question of the eternally conditioned. If the Lord periodically comes wanting to reclaim souls back home, then how do we properly explain this eternally conditioned aspect? Prabhu, you are muted.
The Gita, and Krishna says both also in Srimad Bhagavatam, this has been going on from primeval time. Eternally means anadi, right from the origin, right from the beginning. From primeval time, there are conditioned jivas and there are liberated jivas. It's always been that way.
Yeah, but my question is, the eternally liberated, they don't have any problem. But when the Lord comes into the material existence, his main mission is to reclaim the eternally conditions back home to eternal liberation. So if we are eternally conditioned, then what channels, what is the meaning of he coming to liberate us?
Means that they are eternally conditioned, that we only refer to them as eternally nitya baddhas as long as they're in the material world, because they've been here for a very long time. But every time the Lord comes, and every time, every day, there are jivas who are getting liberated. So, but there are still other jivas who are not getting liberated, but may come a time where they will be liberated.
Sure.
Because it is not our philosophy. Krishna consciousness is not the philosophy of eternal damnation. So yes, they've been conditioned, but there are those who are getting liberated, right? Now you may be a batch of those who actually applied for liberation, right? And it's being processed. It's being processed. And meanwhile, we have to be good children so that we can get access to liberation. Right, so like that, in different universes, millions and millions of jivas are also seeking the lotus feet of the Lord and getting out. So just like our own examples, all of us, we're seeking to get back home, back to Godhead. So we were previously in the category of Nitya Badhas. Now, if you become completely pure in this life, we can become Jivan Muktas. We can still be like, in this life, we already liberated. And after, if you become completely pure, with the process of devotional service, and we're still in this life, we are considered Jivan Muktas, not Nitya Badhas. And then at the end of the body in this life, then we become eternally Nitya Siddhas or Kripa Siddhas. We become Kripa Siddhas. By the mercy of the Lord, we will become, liberated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yes, Sharika Prabhu.
In the light of this explanation given to Rasavan Prabhu, could we then say that the word Nitya and the English translation eternal is as a result of the limitations of the English word in able to describe the word Nitya that makes it eternal? Because when we say eternal in English literary meaning, means without end, permanently without end. But if the living entity's end of existence in the material cosmic manifestation is possible by the process of Bhakti, then the word eternal loses its English meaning. So could we say it's as a result of the limitations of material language or the English language, inability to explain the long time of the existence of the living entity within the cosmic manifestation, that
Nitya would mean what? Everlasting. Sometimes Nitya can mean everlasting. Sometimes Nitya can mean always. And sometimes Nitya can mean forever. So yes, I really cannot express the exact meaning of the word Nitya and how to express it in English. Could mean that too, that you're saying, that it gives a feeling of, but then these words may be there, but Vedic literatures are themselves very difficult to understand. So therefore the Tika, the commentaries of the Acharyas, trying to understand the etymology of the word in itself doesn't help that much. Where does that word Nitya come from and how does it pertain? But when we see the ontology of it, we see the philosophy behind it, explained by the Acharyas, then it makes sense. Because there are millions, the hundreds of words like that in Sanskrit that would give different meanings. That's why we require guru. That's why we require to read and study with the commentaries of the previous Acharyas. Otherwise, nothing will mean anything. So you just get that word out of the blue, Nitya Badha. Well, we are done. Finish. That's what it really means. That's what it really means. No point. Just let's try to be big demons and try to do whatever we can do.
exactly.
Create as much havoc as we want. It can really make any difference, right? But right. So, but it doesn't mean that. So the proper understanding of the words are based on the commentaries of the Acharyas, and they say that we are conditioned souls who will get liberated. So that's why we have to understand the word meaning of it.
Thank you.
Make sense?
Yes.
Because in itself, from all intents and purposes, Nitya Badha means forget it, no point in trying. But it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, you're right.
Can I go on?
Yes, please read.
The expansions of Vedic wisdom also give the Nitya Baddhas, the conditioned living entities, a chance to improve. And those who take advantage of such transcendental knowledge gradually regain their lost consciousness of rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. The demigods are amongst the conditioned souls who have developed their pure consciousness of service to the Lord, but who at the same time continue to desire to lord it over the material energy. Such mixture,
So the point is, you will see that there are demigods, that there are saintly personalities, there are saints, there are evolved spiritual persons, like Marichi Muni appears right at the beginning, dawn of creation. Brahmaji himself, his Veda Garbha, his embodiment of Vedic knowledge. And also you have the four Kumaras who appear right at the dawn of creation, which shows that there are evolved spiritual beings who are in the material world. And they have a great life. Like the Char Kumaras, Narad Muni was not conditioned, but like you can see the Marichi Rishi, Brahmaji, you can consider them to be in the material world working under the modes of nature in a way, because they're here in the material world, they're not liberated. Right? They go to Vaikuntha, they get into trouble, the four Kumaras. So why are they here? Because they are those evolved spiritual personalities reaching the goal of life. So they show that there are so many different, that's what the demigods are saying, so many different gradations are there. And you created all of that right from the beginning. So not everyone is like, okay, we are done, doomed, that's it, finished. So you see, the whole creation has a variety
of gradations,
variety of living entities on different spiritual evolutions, platform of different level of spiritual evolutions. And from there, you can see that it's not all just Nitya Baddha, one, bang, close them in the barrel, throw them at sea, done. No. Right? You can also see it from there.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes. Go on.
Okay. He says, such mixed consciousness puts a conditioned soul in the position of managing the affairs of this creation. The demigods are entrusted leaders of the conditioned souls. As some of the old prisoners in government, jails are entrusted with some responsible work of prison management. So the demigods are improved conditioned souls acting as representatives of the Lord in the material creation.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
So they are in service. So basically also you can say that the material nature, the material energy is also a place where the Lord enjoys. Not in his primal original youth, but because he's a supreme enjoyer. So he also makes pastimes here. He also condemned Jai and Vijay based on the curse of the four Kumaras. Okay, go down and we will have pastimes with you. So he's enjoying pastimes. He wants to enjoy certain pastimes. So in the ultimate, we can understand that the Supreme Lord has his plans, and this material energy is his energy too, and he does his pastimes in it as well. And the jivas who are separated from him, he tries to reclaim them back home, back to Godhead. So that is his mercy. So you have to see the complete picture.
Can I go on?
Yes.
Such demigods are devotees of the Lord in the material world. And when completely free from all material desires to lord it over the material energy, they become pure devotees and have no desire but to serve the Lord. Therefore, any living entity who desires a position in the material world may desire so in the service of the Lord and may seek power and intelligence from the Lord, as exemplified by the demigods in this particular verse. One cannot do anything unless he is enlightened and empowered by the Lord. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Matas meti jnanam apohanamcha. All recollections, knowledge, etc., as well as all forgetfulness, are engineered by the Lord, who is sitting within the heart of everyone. The intelligent man seeks the help of the Lord, and the Lord helps the sincere devotees engage in his multifarious services. The demigods.
So that's quite clear that the Lord is giving Mataksmiti Jnanam Apohanam Chant 15:15, right? And all the different demigods are assisting him in different universal affairs. So the living entity who desires position in the material world, he will become part of the management of this material world, right? Just like we are meant to serve Krishna, where we come to Krishna consciousness. Some of us want to become GBCs, gurus, and sannyasis, and temple president, right? So yeah, but we can always stay as a servant and not try to become conditioned by this, or we can also start to enjoy these positions, and we may be given these positions also. So the demigods, of course, the devotee always wants to stay humble in his service, serving Krishna in whatever way he wishes for us to be engaged. So yeah, carry on reading.
The demigods are entrusted by the Lord to create different species of living entities according to their past deeds. They are herein asking the favor of the Lord for the intelligence and power to carry out their task. Similarly, any conditioned soul may also engage in the service of the Lord under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, and thus gradually become freed from the entanglement of material existence.
Okay, so here says that the demigods are entrusted by the Lord to create different species of living entities according to their past deeds. It's interesting that for example, someone has to be born in a good Brahmana family. Someone has to be born. Is everyone with me? No sleeping. So basically, if all the living entities have to be according to their past deeds, the living entities have to be given a certain facility of a life, of a birth in a particular planet, in a particular family, in a particular species. All these different permutation combinations that will allow a living entity to be born in such and not such, in this and not that, particular circumstances. This is all coming because of the universal management of the demigods. For example, Salika, you're there? You're gone. Okay. So for example, we take the birth. Say a person is under the in the process of devotional service. He's made some good progress, and then he is going to be given a birth. He's going to be given a birth to carry on. As long as he's given a birth to carry on, even in a very high influential position, it is arranged by the modes of material nature, who working under the controllership of the different demigods. Quite interesting. So even sometimes big demigods are born. They are born under the modes of material nature. And I was reading something very interesting earlier today. One of my favorite topics, entanglement in, was it Lord Kapila's, no, 32, entanglement in fruitive activities. And chapter 32 says that Brahma and the Char Kumaras and the Marichis, they are born Why? Because they had an independent mood from the Supreme Lord. Even though they were very spiritually advanced, they were thinking that we can manage by ourselves. So therefore, they go into the body of Mahavishnu and they are born again. Right? So they undergo a process and they're born again. Now, others like maybe you, me, and other living entities or devotees of Krishna trying to perform devotional service, we may not be born. We may not appear in the next life into Krishna Loka. If we take the example of Maharaj Bharat, Maharaj Bharat was given one life as king, 10,000 years he ruled. He was very renowned. He goes back to the forest to perfect his life. He becomes attached. Then he's born into a lower species, but he remembers the Lord because his devotional service was very advanced. So he does not lose his devotional service, even in the body of the animal. Same applies to Gajendra. He remembered the prayers as King Indradumna in his previous life, and therefore he prayed to the Supreme Lord. But then again, Maharaj Bharat or Maharaj Indradumna were born into a body of an animal. And we can be born into a family that will encourage us to practice devotional service. So we still have to undergo, unless we are, because we still, according to what Kapila Dev explains in chapter 32, entanglement in fruitive activities, because we are still involved with certain fruitive activities, we are born again because we are not pure. Just like Maharaj Bharat, just like Indradumna, or just like devotees who cannot go back home, back to Godhead in one life. And it's very probable. So then we go through the process of death, which is encouraged, which is organized by Yamaraj, because he's a demigod who's in charge of death. And then some birth is arranged for us. And then we are put in different species, in different situations, according to our past deeds. So this is recurring. So these are not, just like, it is not like the Lord will personally do this for you and me. Maharaj Bharat was a great advanced spiritualist, transcendentalist, but material nature will take care if you falter and you're tempering with modes of material nature. He will take care and will put you in different things. So birth, death may not be so painful for the devotee. Like some living entities in a mother's womb, they will remember their past birth. Those who are pious, they will pray to the Lord. My dear Lord, I did some mistakes, but when this time I'm going to be born, I'm not going to do that. 7 months in the mother's womb, I'm not going to do that. So I will remember you and I will perform my devotional service. So still there's death previously to be born again. So all these things are regulated by the demigods. And so they have a big service. That's what it is saying here. The demigods are entrusted by the Lord to create different species of living entities according to their past deeds, good or bad. They're here asking the favor of the Lord for the intelligence and power to carry out their task. It requires a massive amount of intelligence. And the Lord, he's a central CPU who makes sure that everything is done accordingly. So Paramatma within our heart knows our desires, aspirations, and everything that we've done. And Paramatma within the heart, he is a communicator. He is the one who facilitates this. That's why these three triangular things. So the demigods know, because the Lord is communicating with them. This living entity, this. And this is all within the ambit of Paramatma. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So now you see the functionality or the mode of functioning of the devatas within this material creation.
Can I go on?
Yes. Is there any question on this?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
This brings my mind to the function of Yamaraj. After death, is it not it's a major factor who determines where you go after you face the judgment, then it determines where you go according to your past activity. Can you just enlighten us a little bit the role that Yamaraj plays?
But he's the Lord of Death. So he helps the jivas over the transition and all kinds of transitions. Otherwise, what is his role? His role is not only to punish, he's a pure devotee. He is a Mahabhagavat. He knows the principles of dharma in and out. And you saw that when his form came as Dharmaraj, son of Dharmaraj, Yudhishthir, he was also very righteous. So yeah, he knows all the different rules and regulations of religious and irreligious behavior. So not just that he knows only bad things, he only knows good things. So for the good people, he will arrange good destination. Otherwise, have you ever heard of anyone else taking care of death of good people? Who takes care of death of good people who are not meant to go and see the doors of hell? Huh?
The Vishnu Dutas, they take care of good people.
I don't understand your accent, Prabhu. You have to speak clearly.
Okay, I said the
Talking about
the Vishnu Dutas, they take care of saintly people.
Don't know. The Vishnu Dutas from Vaikuntha Lok, they only come for when you're liberated.
Okay.
I never heard Vishnu Dutas putting you in another human body. Who puts you in another human body? It is a work of the Vishnu Dutas? No, it's a work of the Devatas.
Yeah, but Yamaraj.
Yeah. There's also Pitrilok, the holding place for the jivas, which is also under the care of Yama, and so on. All right, so let's move on.
Okay. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord. And anyone who puts himself under the guidance of a spiritual master and acts accordingly is said to be acting in terms of Buddhi Yoga, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 241. Vyavasa yatamika buddhire, ekeha kuru nandana, bahu saka hiya anantascha, buddhayo vyavasa yinam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the third canto, 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. Hare Krishna.
So acting in terms of Buddhi Yoga, which means the right use of intelligence. So the right use of intelligence, where we're using our senses properly, and we are using the sense objects appropriately, within this triangular framework of Adideva, Adibhuta, Adiyagya, which is also the subject of discussion in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, right from the beginning. But here you get some more explanations of it. So this ends the chapter 5 of Vidura's talk with Maitreya, and then the creation of the universal form. Now this will solve the problem of the suspension of the non-combination of the potencies, which is what the complaint of the Devatas are. So the complaint, the prayers rather, and the issue of the Devatas is the combination of the different potencies of the elements. We've the free triangular things that I've explained. And he said, it's not working out. So then the Lord enters as the universal form, which then provides a framework, a blueprint for the proper placement of everything, and then it starts to function. Why? I give you an example so you can, I'm saying this so you can prepare yourself and read ahead, please. Not just a question of getting all the elements. Okay? I give you a very simple analytical example, a gross example. You want to build a house. So you buy all the ingredients. You buy the iron bars, you buy the wood, you buy the glass panes, you listening? Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear
Yes,
noise.
we are hearing.
Okay.
We are hearing
So
you.
then you buy all the rocks and the bricks and you bring it on the plot of land. And then you bring around a builder. Build me a house. Okay. Then you go. Then you say, okay, build me a house. I have everything here, build me a house. But then you're not given proper directions. You haven't given what size house, how, for whom, how many people, this, that. Do you follow? So that will depend on what? It will depend on who, for, what, for, who, with. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Right. So then the Lord now gives direction. So basically the blueprint is what we're going to be kind of discussing a little bit for the creation. This is the creation of the universal form. So take that hint and now read the section that follows, creation of the universal form and the development of the gigantic universal form. And we will discuss that tomorrow for an hour or so. Okay. And hopefully we can reach up to text 26. We will hope to finish that in two days discussion. So now you understand, you get an idea that so far the sarga means elemental creations there. The elemental creations are there. There's a suspension for a period of time. The demigods are kind of a bit in the dark. We are controllers of the sort of destiny of the living entities, the wanderings of the living entities. Some has to go here, some has to go there, some have to have these bodies, some have to have these bodies, but the coordinated intelligence is not working, so there's a suspension of the creation. So therefore now the Lord will come into play and empower everyone. That's chapter 6. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Let me ask one question before we close. I know time is almost gone. When looking at this aspect of the discussion we're having and the intro you're giving into the next thing, I picked something from the last paragraph of the last verse of that part. The demigods are entrusted by the Lord to create different species of living entities according to their past deeds. Now, my question is that we're talking from everything from the beginning of the creation. Where does the living entity got the past deeds from?
It's a cycle. Sharika, what's happening? It's a cycle of creation. It's not the first time creation is taking place. You and I, we were both bad boys in the last creation.
Okay. So that creation has it's interesting.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
So, Prabhuji,
an endless cycle, an endless cycle.
Creation
Yes.
is also endless. That's why material nature is endless. The jivas are eternal. Prakriti is eternal. Time is eternal. The Supreme Lord is eternal. The only thing that's not eternal.
The only thing that's not eternal
Is karma. Karma can be ended. So material nature, creation, the whole thing is going on since time immemorial, anadi. Anadi avidya vidya yuktasya. 11:20, I think 3 or 4, I forgot. Lord Krishna says it's going on from time immemorial. So you get your karma. So when the living entities are injected or impregnated with, material nature is impregnated with the living entities. The living entities, sum total, represent like the living force that is being impregnated. So they become like the virya, the semen of the Lord, to explain there. And it is gone, it's not a physical semen, but it is glands. And the jivas in the subtle forms, in the spiritual forms, are injected. But before, they were not just sitting in Shushupti, in deep sleep in the body of the Lord. Their subtle bodies, the subtle desires and everything were also contained within the Lord. I'll prove you one thing. Just 1 minute. I will read just one verse. I will read you one thing. Second canto, chapter 6, text 11. Put it on the screen. To 6:11. Okay, let me read it. Avyaktarasa siddhunam bhutanang nidanasya cha udarang vidita pungso hridayang manasa padam. Okay, so he said the personal feature of the Lord is the abode of the great oceans, and his belly is a resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. So the materially annihilated living entities, the living entities cannot be annihilated, can they? The soul can be destroyed? No. Second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, avinasi tu tadvidi yena sarvam idam tatam. Cannot be destroyed. But the material bodies have been annihilated. So then his belly is a resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. But the akash of his heart is an abode of the subtle material bodies of living entities. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men. So our subtle bodies, this here is talking about Garbhodakshai Vishnu. He is talking about Garbhodakshai Vishnu at the end, read the purport. Read the purport. It is stated that according to human calculation, a day of Brahma is equal to so and so. So a Brahma, generally a devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after a long period of time, so and so. Okay, so here, at the end of Brahma days, at the end of Brahma's day, when there is Naimitika Pralay, say for example, all the universes up to a certain level are destroyed. Nothing is there. Some universes stay. Up to Maharlok, Tapalok, Janalok, whatever stays. Some planets there. Brahmalok is there. But up to Swargalok, everything is destroyed. So there is no Swargalok. There is no Bhumandal. There is no lower planetary system. What happens to the Jivas? Brahma's gone to sleep. Where do they go for 4,300,000 years? They go in the belly of Lord Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and their subtle bodies are in the heart of Lord Vishnu. There it is. That is within this one cycle of creation. This is one cycle of creation. But then when happens the day or the life of Brahma is finished, then what happens? Then you go into the body of Karanodakshaya Vishnu, into Mahavishnu. Then the next glance, he opens his eye, the next glance will be the next cycle of universal creation. Then you'll be there again. Okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai. His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
So devotees, let us loudly chant a powerful Hare Krishna to appreciate Prabhu and then pronounce. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.